Chapter 5 The Hermit on the Rock. Lucky was on Dingo's back now, and it was his thighs that gripped the other's wrists. He spoke softly and grimly. "You can hear me, Dingo, can't you? I don't know where we are or where we're going, but neither do you. So we need each other now, Dingo. Are you ready to make a deal? You can find out where we are because your radio will reach the ships, but you can't get back without carbon dioxide. I have enough for both of us, but I need you to guide us back." "To space with you, you scupper!" yelled Dingo. "When I'm done with you, I'll have your push tubes." "I don't think you will," said Lucky coolly. "You think you'll let 'em loose, too? Go ahead, you lashing ripper. What good will that do? The captain will come for me wherever I am, while you're floating around with a busted helmet and frozen blood on your face." "Not exactly, my friend. There's something in your back, you know. Maybe you can't feel through the metal, but it's there, I assure you." "A push-gun. So what? Doesn't mean a thing as long as we're held together." But his arms halted their writhing attempt to seize Lucky. "I'm not a push-gun duelist." Lucky sounded cheerful about it. "But I still know more than you do about push-guns. Push-gun shots are exchanged miles apart. There's no air resistance to slow and mess up the gas stream, but there's internal resistance. There's always some turbulence in the stream. The crystals knocked together slow up, the line of gas widens. If it misses its mark, it finally spreads out in space and vanishes. But if it finally hits, it still kicks like a mule after miles of travel." "What in space are you talking about? What are you running off about?" The pirate twisted with bull strength, and Lucky grunted as he forced him back. Lucky said, "Just this. What do you suppose happens when the carbon dioxide hits at 2 inches, before turbulence has done anything at all to cut down its velocity or to broaden the beam? Don't guess, I'll tell you. It would cut through your suit as though it were a blowtorch, and through your body, too." "You're nuts! You're talking crazy!" Dingo swore madly, but all of a sudden he was holding his body stiffly motionless. "Try it, then," said Lucky. "Move. My push-gun is hard against your suit, and I'm squeezing the trigger. Try it out." "You're fouling me," snarled Dingo. "This isn't a clean win." "I've got a crack in my faceplate," said Lucky. "The men will know where the foul is. You have half a minute to make up your mind." The seconds passed in silence. Lucky caught the motion of Dingo's hand. He said, "Goodbye, Dingo." Dingo cried thickly, "Wait! Wait! I'm just extending my sending range." Then he called, "Captain Anton! Captain Anton!" It took an hour and a half to get back to the ships. The Atlas was moving through space again in the wake of its pirate captor. Its automatic circuits had been shifted to manual controls wherever necessary, and a prize crew of 3 controlled its power. As before, it had a passenger list of 1, Lucky Starr. Lucky was confined to a cabin, and saw the crew only when they brought him his rations. The Atlas's own rations, thought Lucky, or at least such as were left. Most of the food and such equipment that wasn't necessary for the immediate maneuvering of the ship had already been transferred to the pirate vessel. All 3 pirates brought him his first meal. They were lean men, browned by the unsoftened rays of the sun of space. They gave him his tray in silence, inspected the cabin cautiously, stood by while he opened the cans and let their contents warm up, then carried away the remains. Lucky said, "Sit down, men. You don't have to stand while I eat." They did not answer. One, the thinnest and lankest of the 3, with a nose that had once been broken and was now bent sideways, and an Adam's apple that jutted sharply outward, looked at the others as though he felt inclined to accept the invitation. He met with no response, however. The next meal was brought by Broken Nose alone. He put down the tray, went back to the door, which he opened. He looked up and down the corridor, closed the door again, and said, "I'm Martin Manu." Lucky smiled. "I'm Bill Williams. The other 2 don't talk to me, eh?" "They're Dingo's friends, but I'm not. Maybe you're a government man like the captain thinks, and maybe you're not, I don't know, but as far as I'm concerned, anyone who does what you did to that scupper Dingo is all right. He's a wise guy and he plays rough. He got me into a push fight once when I was new. He nearly pushed me into an asteroid. For no reason, either. He claimed it was a mistake, but listen, he doesn't make any mistakes of a pusher. You made quite a few friends, mister, when you dragged back that hyena by the seat of his pants. I'm glad of that, anyway. But watch out for him. He'll never forget it. Don't be alone with him even 20 years from now, I'm telling you. It isn't just about beating him, you see. It's bluffing him with the story about cutting through an inch of metal with the carbon dioxide. Everyone's laughing at him, and he's sick about it. Man, I mean sick. It's the best thing that's ever happened. Man, I sure hope the boss gives you a clean bill. The boss? Captain Anton? No, the boss, the big fella. Say, the food you got on board ship is good, especially the meat. The pirate smacked his lips loudly. You get tired of all these yeast masses, especially when you're in charge of a vat yourself. Lucky was brushing up the remainder of his meal. Who is this guy? Who? The boss. Manu shrugged. Space, I don't know. You don't think a guy like me would ever meet him. Just someone the fellas talk about. It stands to reason someone's boss. The organization's pretty complicated. Man, you never know till you join. Listen, I was dead broke when I came out here. I didn't know what to do. I thought, well, we'll bang up a few ships, and then I'll get mine and it'll be over. You know, it'd be better than starving to death like I was doing. It wasn't that way? No, I've never been on a raiding expedition. Hardly any of us are. Just a few like Dingo. He goes out all the time. He likes it, the scrapper. Mostly we go out and pick up a few women sometimes. The pirate smiled. I've got a wife and kid. You wouldn't believe that now, would you? Sure, we've got a little project of our own. Have our own vets. Once in a while I draw space duty, like now, for instance. It's a soft life. You can do all right if you join up. A good-looking fellow like you could get a wife in no time and settle down. Or there's plenty of excitement if that's what you want. Yes, sir, Bill. I hope the boss takes you. Lucky followed him to the door. Where are we going, by the way? One of the bases? Just to one of the rocks, I guess. Whichever's nearest. You'll stay there till word comes through. It's what they usually do. He added as he closed the door, and don't tell the fellows or anybody I've been talking to you. Okay, pal? Sure thing. Alone again, Lucky pounded a fist slowly and softly into his palm. The boss. Was that just talk? Scuttlebutt? Or did it mean something? And what about the rest of the conversation? He had to wait. Galaxy. If only Conway and Henry had the good sense not to interfere for a while longer. Lucky did not get a chance to view the rock as the Atlas approached. He did not see it until, preceded by Martin Manu and followed by a second pirate, he stepped out of the airlock into space and found it 100 yards below. The asteroid was quite typical. Lucky judged it to be 2 miles across the longest way. It was angular and craggy as though a giant had torn off the top of a mountain and tossed it out into space. Its sun side glimmered gravy brown, and it was turning visibly, shadows shifting and changing. He pushed downward toward the asteroid as he left the airlock, flexing his leg muscles against the ship's hull. The crags floated up slowly toward himself. When his hands touched the ground, his inertia forced the rest of his body on downward, tumbling him in slow motion until he could grasp the projection and bring himself to a halt. He stood up. There was almost the illusion of a planetary surface about the rock. The nearest crags of matter, however, had nothing behind them, nothing but space. The stars, moving visibly as the rock turned, were hard, bright glimmers. The ship, which had been put into an orbit about the rock, remained motionless overhead. The pirate led the way, some 50 feet to a rise in rock in no way distinguished from its surroundings. He made it in 2 long steps. As they waited, a section of the rise slipped aside, and from the opening a space-suited figure stepped out. "Okay, Herm," said one of the pirates gruffly. "Here he is. He's in your care now." The voice that next sounded in Lucky's receiver was gentle and rather weary. "How long will he be with me, gentlemen?" "Till we come get him. Don't ask questions." The pirate turned away and leapt upward. The rock's gravity could do nothing to stop them. They dwindled steadily, and after a few minutes, Lucky saw a brief flash of crystals as one of them corrected his direction of travel by means of a push-gun. A small one, routinely used for such purposes, that was part of standard suit equipment. Its gas supply consisted of a built-in carbon dioxide cartridge. Minutes passed, and the ship's rear jets gleamed redly. It, too, began dwindling. It was useless to try to check the direction in which it was leaving, Lucky knew, without some knowledge of his own location in space. And of that, except that he was somewhere in the asteroid belt, he knew nothing. So intense was his absorption that he almost startled at the soft voice of the other man on the asteroid. He said, "It is beautiful out here. I come out so rarely that sometimes I forget. Look there." Lucky turned to his left. The small sun was just poking above the sharp edge of the asteroid. In a moment it was too bright to look at. It was a gleaming 20-credit gold piece. The sky, black before, remained black, and the stars shone undiminished. That was the way on an airless world where there was no dust to scatter sunlight and turn the heavens a deep, masking blue. The man of the asteroid said, "In 20 minutes or so it will be setting again. Sometimes, when Jupiter is at its closest, you can see it too, like a little marble with its 4 satellites, like spokes lining up in military formation. But that only happens every 3.5 years. This isn't the time." Lucky said bluntly, "Those men called you Herm. Is that your name? Are you one of them?" "You mean am I a pirate? No. But I'll admit I may be an accessory after the fact. Nor is my name Herm. That's just the term they use for hermits in general. My name, sir, is Joseph Patrick Hansen, and since we are to be companions at close quarters for an indefinite period, I hope we shall be friends." He held out a metal-sheathed hand, and Lucky grasped it. "I'm Bill Williams," he said. "You say you're a hermit? Do you mean by that you live here all the time?" "That's right." Lucky looked about the poor splinter of granite and silica and frowned. "It doesn't look very inviting." "Nevertheless, I do try my best to make you comfortable." The hermit touched a section of the slab or rock out of which he had come, and a piece of it reeled open once again. Lucky noted that the edges had been beveled and lined with lactium or some similar material to ensure airtightness. "Won't you step inside, Mr. Williams?" invited the hermit. Lucky did so. The rock slab closed behind them. As it closed, a small fluoro lit up and shone away the obscurity. It revealed a small airlock, not much larger than was required to hold 2 men. A small red signal light flickered, and the hermit said, "You can open your faceplate now. We've got air." He did it so himself as he spoke. Lucky followed suit, dragging in lungfuls of clear, fresh air. Not bad. Better than the air on shipboard, definitely. But it was when the inner door of the airlock opened that the wind went out of Lucky in one big gasp. And thus ends the chapter. Wonder what he saw behind the door. Alright. Bye, and I hope you enjoy the next chapter. Have a good day.